Chief Duro's gold shines bright and Chijoke's worries grow. Now Adana has to make a big choice. She must decide who she's willing to lose or who she's ready to become. The cat sat on Adana's small sewing table for days, with its gold letters making her feel uneasy every time she looked at her new sketches. Chief Duro's words kept playing in her mind. A showroom in Ikoyi, a ready staff, imported fabrics, and her brand shining in bridal magazines. It was a promise too big to ignore. But whenever she thought about saying yes, she remembered how his eyes lingered too long and the way his fingers brushed against her palm, making her stomach twist. She told herself she might be overthinking it, that powerful men often behaved this way. And if she was smart, she'd play along just enough to get what she needed and forget the rest. Chijoke stayed quiet at first, but she saw the worry in his eyes each time he noticed her tracing the edge of the card. One night, over their half-empty plate of beans and yam, he finally spoke up. "I know what he wants, Ada. Men like him don't give gifts for nothing." Adana snapped back, her voice sharp from days of worry and sleepless nights. "And what do you want me to do? Keep sewing in this small space forever? My parents hate me and my friends gossip. If this shop grows, we both win. Or do you want me to stay small forever?" Chijoke's eyes softened with hurt. "I want you safe. I want your dreams to be yours, not tied to some man's hidden price." They sat in the quiet of their small studio, while Lagos buzzed and roared. The offer hung between them like a mosquito net they couldn't tear down. Each day, they stitched side by side, the silence louder than the machine's hum. Chijoke forced a smile when customers came, but Adana felt his distance like a cold wind. She hated it. She hated that her dream, which was once theirs, now felt like it was hers alone. One evening, after fitting a demanding new bride, they argued. She accused him of not believing in her enough, of holding her back because he was scared. He replied that she was blind to the truth and that Chief Duro wanted her and not her designs. They said things that couldn't be taken back. He slammed the door so hard that the old curtain rod fell, scattering fabric scraps across the floor like wounded birds. Alone in the mess, Adana pressed her palms to her face. She wanted this so badly. The showroom, the respect, a chance to lift her family from shame. But she hadn't meant to lose Chijoke in the process. She picked up the falling curtain rod, hands trembling as she tried to put it back up. The next week, Chief Duro's driver came by with a gift, a parcel wrapped in gold paper, with imported silk samples and a handwritten note that said, "I believe in your talent. Let me help you shine." At the bottom, his signature curled like a snake. Adana sat on her mat, running her fingers over the silk. It was the softest fabric she'd ever felt, far from the rough roll she had bought at Balogun Market. She imagined what she could create, dresses worthy of the cover of a Shrebi bride, orders that would pay her parents' debts, restore Chijoke's pride, and silence the street gossip. She stared at her phone for hours, her thumb hovering over Chief Duro's number. One call, one word, yes, and she would have everything she thought she wanted. In the quiet parts of her mind, she could see Chijoke's eyes. They were hurt but honest. She heard his warning ring in her ears. Not every gift is free. She packed away the silk, hiding it under old wrappers. That night, sleep wouldn't come. Her dreams were filled with wealth and regret, tangled up in her thoughts. By dawn, she still hadn't figured out what kind of seamstress or woman she wanted to be. For days, Chijoke didn't come to the shop. He went back to his uncle's roadside stall, fixing trousers and uniforms for little money. After work, he sat outside on a wooden bench, staring at the night sky full of holes from the city's flickering lights. One evening, his father joined him. He was frail now, burdened by debts and regrets. Since they lost everything, he hadn't said much, but seeing his son's empty eyes brought back old guilt. Chijoke, he whispered into the wind, you must not lose her. Chijoke shrugged. She wants more than I can give. His father let out a dry laugh. Do you think this is about money? That money makes a man worthy? I had money. Now where is it? Chijoke stayed silent. His father placed a shaking hand on his knee. Your mother loved me when I had nothing. If you let this girl go because you feel small, you'll regret it forever. They sat there, father and son, shadows among broken benches and faded dreams. In the silence, Chijoke understood the truth, a truth his father learned too late. Money comes and goes, but some stitches, once lost, can never be sewn back. Meanwhile, at home, Adana's mother watched her daughter move around the house like a ghost. She ate little and spoke less, her eyes often drifting back to a gold-embossed card she carried in her purse like a lucky charm or a curse. One evening, while they pounded yam in the backyard, her mother wiped her forehead and spoke without looking up. I heard about the rich man. Adana froze. Mama, it's just business. Her mother sighed. Business isn't worth your peace, Adana, or your pride. Adana's voice shook. I want to make you proud. I want Papa to feel strong when he walks into church. If this is what it takes. Her mother turned with sharp eyes and looked at her. We didn't raise you to sell your dreams for another man's favor. If you take this money, it won't just be the dress he owns. It will be you too. Adana's throat tightened. Anger and fear twisted inside her. She wanted to scream that her mother didn't understand, that respect was a luxury when you were poor, but the words stuck in her throat. That night, Adana lay awake listening to the wind rattle the roof. Deep inside, she wondered if her mother was right. If a showroom filled with silk was worth a heart that felt secondhand. The next morning, Adana stood at her sewing table, sketches scattered like a map of everything she hadn't become yet. The gold card sparkled beside her scissors. She picked it up, then put it down, caught between two futures shaped by fear. She pictured her father, proudly sitting with the elders at her wedding. She saw Chijoke's smile, his hand softly covering hers when the world felt heavy. She imagined Ikoyi, glass doors, clients with deep pockets, her name on magazine covers. But she also saw Chief Duro's lingering gaze, and the rumors that would follow her forever. She saw the cost her mother warned her about, the silent payment that would come when everyone else stopped clapping. She wanted it all, the showroom, the respect, and love. But Lagos taught her that wanting everything meant losing something. The city always demanded a sacrifice. She grabbed her sewing shears and cut the gold card in half. The pieces fell to the floor like confetti at a wedding. She sat down, the thread shaking in her fingers. For the first time in days, she let herself cry. Not because she was weak, but because dreams, like fabric, had to be cut to fit real life. The next day, when Chijoke walked into the studio, he found her asleep at the machine, her face on unfinished lace. The torn pieces of Chief Duro's card lay beside her like the remains of a battle. She woke up when his shadow fell over her. For a moment, they just looked at each other, two tired souls who had almost forgotten how to stand together. He reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face. She took his hand and held it there, her eyes shining with unsaid apologies. I almost said yes, she whispered. Not because I don't believe in you, but because I was scared. Chijoke knelt beside her. His warm hand touched her cheek. We can be scared together, he said softly. but we won't give ourselves away to be brave. She laughed, a small shaky laugh that turned into tears. He held her until she stopped trembling. They talked for hours, sharing hopes and dreams, piecing them back together. Adana went home that night to a quiet house. Her father sat on the veranda, staring at the street, waiting for good news. When she told him she turned down Chief Duro's offer, his silence felt sharp enough to cut cloth. "You are too proud," he finally snapped. "Too proud to accept help, too foolish to save our family name." Her mother stood by the door, hands folded in her wrapper. Her eyes were soft, but she said nothing. There were no more words left between father and daughter, only disappointment mixed with stubborn hope. Adana packed a small bag and left before dawn. She didn't slam the door or look back. She knew her father's pride would heal slower than torn lace. But maybe one day he would understand. The path she chose wasn't shame, it was survival. When she got to the studio, Chijioke was already there, ironing fabric for their next client. He opened his arms. Without a word, she stepped into them. The shop was small and still leaked when it rained, but it felt more like home than the quiet house ever could. They buried themselves in work. Others rolled in, small weddings, church dresses, matching outfits for mothers and daughters. They sewed through the night, fingers sore, eyes red from lack of sleep. When gossip tried to creep in, Adana silenced it with bold new designs. So even her jealous friends had to admit she was onto something special. Her brides danced down the dusty Lagos streets in gowns that mixed tradition with rebellion. Ankara sleeves on satin trains, beadwork that shimmered like city lights. Each payment brought her closer to the bride price she promised to raise herself. Chijioke kept up with her, stitch for stitch. In the quiet hours before dawn, they whispered dreams of a real shop front, training other tailors, and a wedding that would never be called charity. They didn't mention Chief Duro again. They didn't need to. His ghost lingered only in the lessons he left behind. Together, they were learning that some fabrics are stronger when patched by hand. One humid afternoon, an unexpected call changed everything. A luxury events planner, impressed by BC's wedding photos, wanted 50 bridesmaids' gowns for a big society wedding in Victoria Island. Each one custom, each one different. It was the biggest order they'd ever seen. Adana nearly dropped the phone when she heard the advance payment. It was more than enough to pay her bride price, with plenty left to upgrade their old machines. Chijioke hugged her tightly, making her squeal. They danced around the tiny shop, laughing and spinning, excited about the future. But soon, their excitement turned into panic. 50 dresses meant 50 fittings, 50 deadlines, and 50 chances to mess up. They hired 2 young ladies as apprentices. The little shop was filled with fabric, laughter, and the sound of machines working day and night. When they grew too tired to talk, they communicated through pinned hems and measured pleats. They slept on the studio floor, waking just to boil noodles and check their growing list of orders. They knew this order could either make or break them, but they had come too far to fear the needle now. 2 weeks into the big Victoria Island order, Adana's hand hurt so much she could barely hold her shears. Chijioke's eyes were red from lack of sleep. The apprentices took turns napping under the cutting table between fittings. The shop that once felt like freedom was now filled with exhaustion and whispers of doubt. Mistakes started happening. A wrong hemline here, a missing bead there. Clients complained. The event planner called twice a day, her voice sweet but full of threat. One night, as the rain hammered on the tin roof, Adana snapped at Chijioke over a crooked seam. He fired back, his words sharp from tiredness and pride. The apprentices pretended not to hear as needles dropped to the floor. But when the thunder eased, so did their anger. They sat close together on the dusty floor, sipping cold tea. letting their heads rest against each other. "We can't keep doing this on our own," Chijoke said softly. "We need help, real help." Adana knew he was right, but help cost money and trust. Both were hard to find in a city where jealousy and trouble often hid behind friendly faces. Still, things had to change, or they would lose everything they had worked so hard to build. The next morning, they took a deep breath and asked for favors. Old neighbors who once laughed at them now lined up to cut fabric for a small wage. Aunties who had taught Adana how to sew came by, rolling up their sleeves and joking about old village weddings. They turned their small shop into a busy place. Each dress became a shared promise, one woman adding beads, another pressing the pleats, and a young apprentice learning how to use the zigzag stitch without ruining the fabric. Adana and Chijoke barely slept, but the weight felt lighter when they shared it. When they saw 50 finished gowns hanging on a makeshift rack, shining like a rainbow of survival, they both cried. Delivery day arrived. The client smiled at the line of gowns, running her fingers over the details. She handed them an envelope so thick it barely fit in Adana's purse. "Your work is good," she said, nodding at Chijoke too. "Your name will go far." They watched her car drive off, kicking up dust behind it. When the street was quiet again, Adana and Chijoke looked at each other. Together, they had weathered the biggest storm yet, and their dreams had become stronger, stitched together by many hands and hope. Word of the Victoria Island wedding reached Adana's father before she could share the news. Neighbors whispered about the girl who had sewn her way into the society pages. One Sunday, he showed her picture to an old friend at church, pretending not to care but feeling proud inside. When Adana came home with fresh yams and a small bag of gifts, she found him on the veranda, waiting again. This time, his eyes were softer, less like a locked gate, more like an old door starting to open. "People say you are becoming somebody now," he said, not looking at her. "They say you turned down the rich man's help." Adana knelt to greet him properly. "Try not to cry. Papa, I didn't want to bring you shame. I wanted to make you proud." He grunted, his eyes moist. "You have done both, stubborn girl." Adana's mother came to the door, wiping her hands on her wrapper. With a big smile, she gave Adana roasted corn, a quiet blessing. That night, they sat together eating in the courtyard under a crooked moon. It wasn't forgiveness yet, but it was a start. For Adana, it meant more than all the silk in Ikoyi. Adana's designs caught the eyes of more than just brides. At another bridal show, a young hotel owner named Obina noticed her work and asked to meet privately. He had a clean smile and deep pockets. He praised her talents and offered partnership, investment, and more. Obina wasn't like Chief Duro. He was younger, charming, and respectful. He seemed like someone who could help her get taken seriously in Lagos society. When he came to the shop with flowers and a bottle of fancy wine, even Chijoke looked tensed. At first, Adana laughed it off, but Obina was persistent, mixing compliments with business talks. He talked about showcasing her designs in his hotels, hosting runway events, and expanding her brand across the country. When he leaned in closer, he made it clear that he wanted more than just her designs. Chijoke tried to hide his jealousy, but it showed in his quiet looks and sharp words. The apprentices gossiped when they thought Adana couldn't hear. One night, Obina texted her, "Dinner? Just the two of us. We can talk business or dreams." Adana stared at her phone, torn between wanting to meet him and feeling loyal. The world she had fought to build suddenly felt like delicate fabric, beautiful but easily torn. She agreed to meet Obina at a rooftop restaurant on Victoria Island. partly to protect her business, partly to feel the thrill when he called her Queen of Needles. The view was amazing. Lagos sparkled below like a sea of gold. Obina poured her wine, asking about her childhood, her dreams, and her fears. He listened in a way that made her feel truly seen, different from how Chijoke saw her. When he reached across the table and gently brushed her wrist, she didn't pull away right away. For a dizzy moment, she wondered what life could be like: soft, easy, filled with luxury rather than hard work and struggle. But when he leaned closer, she remembered Chijoke's laugh, the way he once said, "We are more than our stitches, Ada." She pulled her hand back. Obina's smile faded, then turned stiff. He tried to cover it with another toast. "Think about it, Adana. You deserve more than a boy who can only thread needles." On the ride home, she sat silently in a cab, the lights of Lagos blaring outside like loose stitches. She knew she was standing on a line that was too thin to balance on forever. Thank you for watching. Will Adana fall for Obina's charm and abandon Chijoke? Or will she find the strength to stitch her own destiny? If you were in Adana's shoes, who would you choose? Safety with Chijoke or luxury with Obina? Let me know your choice in the comments. Let's have a debate. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. The story is far from over in the bride price hustle. Until next time, dream big and stay curious. It's all love from this side.